I'm Caris Tyndall, a director at Charles Eade Gallery in Mayfair, and this is a Greek marble grave marker. It's from Athens and dates to the first quarter of the 4th century BC. On the front of the grave marker, you have carved in a very shallow relief a scene, a fight between a man who is dressed in the garb of warriors of the day. He has a helmet, a chiton, or sort of short dress, over which he has his cuirass, his breastplate, and in his right arm is upraised, and once there would have been painted on a spear being thrust down at this figure beneath us. Now this figure beneath is very interesting. This is a woman. She's wearing a short chiton as well, and she's holding her arm up against the man as he's about to strike this final blow. The garment has slipped from her right shoulder, exposing her breast, and this shows that she's about to be defeated. We know that this man is triumphant. This is the end of the battle. Now, why is this scene on the grave marker? Well, these aren't two random individuals. Indeed, this is not the man whose name has been written across the top of the grave marker, ΚΟΛΥ-ΜΒΑΣ, written in Greek. This is a scene from the Amazonomachy, the famous battle between man and the Amazons. Now, the Amazons were symbolic to the Greeks. The Amazons represented a distortion of the natural order. They were fighters. They were a society of only women who ruled themselves. They didn't need men in their lives. They were considered barbaric by the Greeks. Often they were thought to be Eastern and would represent the Eastern enemies of the civilized Western world, of the Greeks themselves. In the period when this was made, this image would represent not just the overarching theme of the civilized world controlling the barbaric one, the disordered one. At this time, the Greeks were at war or had been in many battles against Persia. And so an image like this might represent some of those wars. It could represent the defeated enemy. The man who's been represented here could well have been a warrior himself, but he might have just been an important individual in foreign affairs or military tactics. How do we know this is definitely an Amazon? Why is it not just a woman? And would somebody have recognized this imagery walking past this grave marker? Well, at the time, you just have to look around at the iconography and imagery in their own worlds. Think of the Parthenon frieze. There's the Amazonomachy running along the top of it, or indeed the frieze of the Temple of Apollo at Bassae. In fact, it was at this period as well. There was a competition between 5 of the most famous sculptors of the day in order to create an image of an Amazon that would be held at the cult temple of Artemis at Ephesus. And one of these images, and you might recognize the gesture here, is of a woman with this short cropped hair, wearing the chiton. The right side of the robe has slipped down and she has her arm up behind her head. Later, you see the Romans copied this image many times over, and so we can still find it today. An object like this would have lined the roads that exited a major town or city. The shape itself is called a lutrophorus. Originally, it would have had a short foot and 2 very high arching handles and a long neck. On a smaller scale and in terracotta, this vessel was used for nuptial rituals, but also in funerary rites. And so it made a very apt vessel on which to represent the individual who had died in marble, so that it would remind of the passers-by of the man, his achievements, but also that this is funerary, and to remind them that this is an example of the vessel that would have been used at his gravesite in order to honour him on his death. Large grave markers like this existed from around 430 BC until 317 BC, when Demetrius Phalereus put a ban on what he considered to be ostentatious luxury markers, and they were no longer allowed to have these lining the roads. So it's actually a rather short-lived period that we can even find such pieces. An object like this gives wonderful insight into the psyche of the citizens of ancient Athens. The iconography is immediate and compelling, and the size of it packs as powerful a punch today as it did 2,500 years ago.